Do you know what reaction makes someone regret disrespecting you the quickest? Not yelling, not banging on the table, not a 30-minute speech proving you right and them wrong. In fact, the most surprising reactions are often the calmest ones. This sounds counterintuitive. In movies, the strong person is usually the one with the sharpest response. The winner is usually the one who speaks the loudest. But in real life, many people lose the respect of others precisely because they react too quickly, too emotionally, and too predictably. Think about this. When someone deliberately disrespects you, they expect a certain reaction. They expect you to get angry. They expect you to be defensive. They expect you to explain. They expect you to argue. In other words, they're waiting for you to walk into a script they've already written in their head, and the moment you do exactly what they predict, you inadvertently give them control of the conversation. That's why the first reaction that often annoys those who like to disrespect others the most is calmness. Not the kind of feigned calmness on the outside while inside is burning like a volcano, but genuine calmness. Because so many people use provocation as a tool. They don't want to exchange opinions. They want to provoke a reaction. They want to see you lose control. And when that doesn't happen, they start to lose their advantage. There's an interesting saying. The first person to lose their temper is usually the one who loses power. This isn't always absolutely true, but it's surprisingly true in many situations. When you react emotionally, others can control the conversation according to that emotion. When you remain calm, they are forced to confront their own behavior. The second reaction is refusing to over-explain. This is a mistake many kind people make. When criticized or misunderstood, they immediately start explaining. They explain the reasons. They explain the circumstances. They explain their feelings. They explain to the point where it sounds like they're presenting a doctoral dissertation to someone who has no intention of listening. Ironically, the more you explain, the more you look like you're begging for respect. People with high self-esteem are different. They say what needs to be said. Then they stop. Not because they're arrogant. They simply understand that a truth doesn't need 50 proofs to exist. If someone truly wants to understand you, a brief explanation is usually enough. If someone doesn't want to understand you, 100 explanations won't suffice. The third response is to ask questions instead of retaliating. This is an incredibly powerful technique, yet few people use it. When someone says something disrespectful, instead of jumping to conclusions, calmly ask, "What did you mean by that?" Or, "Why do you think that?" Interestingly, many insults only work when they are thrown without being checked. Like a balloon. From afar, it looks big, but when you touch it, you realize it's just air inside. Stoic people understand that many conflicts exist because of automatic reactions. They don't rush into a fight. They observe first. They think first. And sometimes a simple question is enough to make the other person reveal more than an hour of argument. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that you don't need to make every wrong of others your own problem. This is a much more powerful idea than many realize, because many people carry on their shoulders battles that don't belong to them. One person disrespects them, and they carry anger all day. One person criticizes them, and they lose sleep all night. One person judges them, and they think about it for a week. And somehow, the person who caused the problem continues their normal life while they are still tormenting themselves. That's when you start to realize an important truth. Not every insult deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves your response. And sometimes, the most powerful response isn't proving your worth, but recognizing that your worth never depends on someone else's opinion. In fact, there's another reaction that's even more irritating to someone who disrespects you than an argument. It's selective indifference. Not the kind where you pretend to be cold while thinking about the comment for 3 days. It's genuine indifference. Because many people only continue negative behavior when they get a reward from it. And the biggest reward is often attention. An aggressive person wants to see you angry. A manipulative person wants to see you waver. A condescending person wants to see you try to prove your worth. When you refuse to provide those responses, they start to feel like they're talking to a closed door. This is why many people are surprised to find that the strongest people often don't have the sharpest responses. They simply don't engage. They understand that not every invitation needs to be accepted, and a pointless argument is just like that invitation. You always have the right to refuse. Another response that very few people use is creating distance. This sounds too simple, but it's precisely because it's simple that many people overlook it. They try to fix others. They try to educate others. They try to change others. While sometimes the most effective solution is to reduce the level of contact with those who consistently disrespect you. You can't control other people's behavior, but you can control the level of access they have to your life. Interestingly, when you start creating distance, some people suddenly change their attitude. Not because they become better, but because they realize that their behavior eventually has consequences. And this is something many people don't understand. Boundaries don't exist to punish others. Boundaries exist to protect your peace. Stoic people have long understood that self-respect isn't built by winning every battle. It's built by knowing which battles aren't worth fighting. Some people spend their whole lives trying to make everyone understand, like, and approve of them. But that's an unattainable goal. Because there will always be someone who disagrees with you. There will always be someone who judges you. There will always be someone who misunderstands you. And if your self-worth depends on pleasing everyone, you'll always be in a state of burnout. There's a very interesting paradox in human psychology. The less you need validation from others, the easier it is to earn their respect. Not because you become more mysterious or powerful, but because you're no longer easily manipulated. A person who isn't afraid of rejection is difficult to manipulate. A person who isn't overly dependent on the opinions of others is difficult to control, and that's what makes many people think twice before treating you badly. Ultimately, the reaction that others regret most after disrespecting you isn't revenge, not anger, not proving that you're better than them. It's about continuing to live well, upholding your values, and not letting their behavior change who you are. Because truly strong people don't need to win every argument. They just need not to lose themselves in those arguments. And perhaps the most thought-provoking question is, in those times when you feel disrespected, what hurts you more is the behavior of others, or the fact that you have inadvertently given them too much power over your peace?